Alright, so in this video, I'm going to be watching Sensei Seth's video on Sambo, where he went and he did Sambo in front of the camera and tried it out with Ben Rothrock. It's a really cool video, and it's probably one of the biggest videos done on Sambo by a really big creator. So I want to get right into it, break it down, get right into it. Definitely agree with Seth that Sambo is one of the hardest martial arts to beat. That combination is actually pretty nice. That last throw, that last knee where you go into Ogoshi, Beeb, Islam, and Marab, who I beat, all those guys are killing it in the UFC. The idea of Sambo originally was military art.
Last weekend I tried this martial art called Sambo. It's thought to be one of the
Pretty good
toughest
throw right off the bat.
styles in martial arts. Not only to beat, but to just be a part of in general, I guess. Now, I'll be the first to admit I get nervous a lot. I actually wasn't nervous for this one. Should have been.
Definitely agree with Seth that, yeah, Sambo is one of the hardest martial arts to beat. I think you see it later in the video, but Sambo is really killing it in something like UFC with like Khabib and Islam and Marab, who I beat. All those guys are killing it in the UFC. So you see that Sambo at the very hardest, like highest level, is super hard to beat. So he's 100% correct.
I should have been. I don't.
So that's Coach Ben Rothrock. He's a really nice guy. I've actually met him. I did my FIAS coaching certification with him out in, I believe, the Dominican like 2 or 3 years ago. But he's got some pretty good judo, got some good qualifications. Cool guy. I don't know if I completely agree, because in Sambo people argue all the time about who has what medal, who has what certification, who has what. Like there's tons of argument about all that, and people do respect you just for fighting in general. So I don't know if I fully agree, but there's some merit to what he's saying there.
I don't know why I do this to myself. So if you didn't know, Sambo is a Russian martial art with Soviet origins. Some more prominent names from Sambo you might recognize are like Khabib Nurmagomedov, Andrei Arlovsky, Fedor Emelianenko, Islam Makhachev. You get the idea. Champions, incredibly tough fighters. Which also holds true to Coach Ben Rothrock here, who's going to be one of our 2 coaches for the day. This would typically be the part that I read off their
Well, let's continue. Just give me a second.
But it's like a lot, and that's just for Ben. Anyway, similar to every other martial art, you start off with a warm-up.
You know, Sambo actually, the term Sambo, which is an acronym for self-defense without weapons, came about because there was a ban on anything that wasn't Soviet enough. They liked the judo, they just didn't like the Japanese culture that came with it. They liked karate, especially like your Kyokushin type things, but they didn't like the Japanese influence that came with it. So what do? Well, we're gonna call it self-defense without weapons. We're gonna create this really cool stylized jacket that's hardcore Soviet red, and now Stalin will let us do our thing and not bother us.
Okay, so that is a bit of an oversimplification. The term self-defense without weapons as an acronym for Sambo, or Sambo being an acronym for self-defense without weapons, is accurate. And what he's saying, I don't know 100% if that's true, if the Russians just didn't like the Japanese aspect of judo and karate, because there was other martial arts that were also incorporated into Sambo, other Soviet country martial arts. Something like Chidoba from Georgia or Kurash from, I believe, Kazakhstan. Vasily Ovchepkov took a lot from those other sports. And then another part of like the founding of Sambo was Viktor Spironov started Samoz, which was the like first version of Sambo, which was one of the self-defense arts for the, I believe, NKVD or like the Russian military at the time. So it was originally like a military art. And yes, there was a huge influence from judo, from Vasily Ovchepkov, who was like the first European black belt in judo under Jigoro Kano. So huge influence in judo, and I'm sure some influence from karate, but I think just a bit of an oversimplification, not necessarily wrong.
Right, now we have self-defense without weapons, Sambo.
So do you remember earlier when I said I should have been nervous? Not just because it would be hard, but because this is my first class that I had taken.
I like them doing the pummeling right there. That's a good warm-up drill.
And I don't know how much you know about the flu, but in the flu, you lose some liquids.
That's tough. That's really tough.
Yep. So currently, both of my quads are cramping. Just my quads. Bad time. It couldn't have been 5 minutes into class. I have what I thought at the time was a double quad cramp. See, this is really bad, not only because it hurts, but then two, and more importantly probably, I'm gonna be sparring Coach Rothrock later. And he is an international Sambo competitor and champion. I didn't even wrestle in high school.
So one thing about Seth is now, this video was like three years ago. Now he's got a lot of judo experience. I believe he's got his green belt in judo and sumo experience. So what you see of this from Seth, I think he would do a lot better now, and I'd love to see him try Sambo again. Speaking of, Seth, if you see this video, please come out to Sambo Nation Fort Worth. It'd be fun to have you, and we can run you through Sambo again. Maybe we can do it whenever there's a tournament nearby and you can compete in a tournament. A local tournament would be a great entry point to Sambo. So, little offer there, but man, that is tough hopping into Sambo right after the flu. It is a really, they're tough practices. So, I commend him for sticking through it.
All right, so now we start to blend. Okay, throw my first combination. Boom, boom, bam, swim, swim, headbutt. In this case, we are in an open stance. So I'm going to take the point of my knee, and I'm going to drive with this knee until he gets the leg out of the way. Sport Sambo.
That combination is actually pretty nice right there. I like the use of the knees, and then that last throw, like that last knee where you go into ogoshi off of it. It looks like a knee, but you fake it into the throw. That's actually really quite nice. I like using my strikes as a way to mask the entry to the throw. So yeah, that is quite nice. Let me speed this up
Essentially,
just a little
you're
bit.
taking judo and freestyle wrestling and mixing it into one sport. Combat Sambo is all of that, plus striking punches, kicks, knees, elbows, headbutts. And then you have beach Sambo, and then you have applied Sambo, which is more hand-to-hand combat, self-defense, law enforcement oriented.
So two things right there. First, I think the sports Sambo might have been a bit of an oversimplification. Judo and wrestling just together. I would add jiu-jitsu in there as well for the groundwork portion of things, like the leg locks, the arm bars, and then once you get to combat Sambo, you got the chokes as well. So I would say, typically I do say when I'm talking to people, it's judo, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu mixed together. If you're to overly simplify sports Sambo. And then also that last little clip right there where he stomps on the guy's head, maybe we can go back to it. He does a little stomp right here, boom, and then goes into moving like he has a gun. Very, very interesting because there's a really cool little old Russian Sambo textbook where a guy does a throw, stomps on the guy's head, and then does a fireman's carry. And really the idea of Sambo originally was, like I said, military art. So going, taking someone down, stomping them, and then returning to normal operations. All right, kill this guy. All right, I'm back to doing what I need to do. Very cool little clip right there, to be honest.
Oriented. So in both of these scenarios, we've been dealing with a person that is very clearly one lead or another. But what if he squares up? I'm just going to slide in, rotate here.
Now, I'm not very skilled.
Also, right there, very interesting. A lot of people kind of complain to me because I don't use a lot of the Russian names. It's hard for me, especially because I'm a judo guy, to remember a lot of the Russian names. But if you heard right there, Coach Ben Rothrock said Marote Gary, which is the Japanese name for a double leg. So I find it interesting he also uses the Japanese names for some of these Sambo throws.
Department, but luckily for me, right on the other side of me is Coach Leo. Coach Leo here is a master of sport in Sambo and Judo. Coach Leo won a championship and as recent as 2021?
Probably masters somewhere over here.
That can't be right.
I'm 63.
Okay. How much of your life was Sambo?
Oh, it's a lot.
A lot.
Especially just at the beginning of my life.
This part's very interesting.
When I was 13.
Really?
And it's like now I'm almost like 50 years in this game. For some of us in Soviet Union, one of the ways go to the university. Okay. It's unbelievable. I mean, you have to see the system of the former Soviet Union sport. Every week we got different competition. 5 days we just training, 2 days we go somewhere, like different city, and it's a lot. Yeah. I just did real good level.
So that's really cool, and that's something I'm really jealous of a lot of the Russian and Eastern European athletes, because, yeah, they can just go to college and do Sambo. Similar to how in the U.S., you can go to college and play football, or go to college for wrestling. But over there, similar, Japan has this for Judo as well, but you can go to college and you can do Sambo. You can go to college and do Judo. Those are like funded sports over there. As a like world team member for Sambo or Judo over there, you're funded. That's your job. So I'm quite jealous, because in the U.S., you have to work another job. You got to pay for your travel. I'm jealous of that, and being able to compete more often would be really cool. So, cool little thing right there. So y'all get to kind of insight into what it's like to be a Sambist or even like judoka over in Eastern Europe.
That's why support me to go to become a student of the technical university in Moscow.
Which truly shows the dedication these people have to this sport. But we've got a problem of our own now. I also realized that not only do I not have enough water, but I don't think that my lungs are fully recovered. I felt like I was going to pass out. Long story short, this does not feel good. And I'm not saying this as an excuse, because I finished class. I wasn't going to tell anybody. I just wanted to let you in a little bit on how I was feeling.
I think we're going to skip forward just a little bit to where he's actually sparring.
We're going to experience this. I signed up to get my butt kicked, which I feel like I signed up for a lot.
So he starts off with Sport Sambo.
We started off with some positional.
Nice fat man roll.
And I guess more so to give me an easier.
Yeah, Seth wouldn't fall for that anymore, I don't think.
All right, now your turn.
Can I, like, tag somebody in?
No.
With me? What about two of us?
That's funny.
This was my first real rude awakening to what Sambo is. Constant, always pressure, whether it's to not even a choke, but just a hold that makes you want to tap. Or the fact that he's always attaching you.
Nice little turnover there.
Get away.
Once again, Seth would not tap to that anymore, I don't think, especially with his judo training. Yeah, that's tough. You can't be tapping to pressure, Seth. Come on.
Oh, my God.
I started grappling arts in 2001, so.
Okay.
Yeah, through the Army.
Yeah, I just started my first year Little League.
I was in Iraq, and he hadn't had his first high school.
Hey, that's not exactly true. I had my first ice cream.
Tries for fat man roll again. Taps the pressure again. Dang it, Seth. Come on.
I wish y'all could have felt that. Oh, it hurts. Oh, man.
Now, at this moment, I didn't really want to do this. I didn't want to. I was in so much pain. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The class enough was incredibly hard for me. But then I remembered what Coach Ben and Coach Leo had said maybe an hour beforehand.
My coaches train me, use my power, not against the people. It's what somebody does.
Yeah.
We try to teach people. You got a stable mentality because you're stronger.
Yeah, and I think the intensity of the training creates strength of character. This is very real.
Yeah.
Very visceral. You put your hands on people for real. You know where you really stand in all of this stuff in terms of the way that we do our sparring. I know where you really stand in life on a variety of platforms, I think.
For round two.
100% agree with him there. It's very similar for most combat sports, but really the intensity at which we train, it does build character. Nothing else in life seems as hard as whenever you've trained in a combat sport like Sambo, where you're getting punched in the face, you're getting armbarred, you're getting leg locked, you're having to push through whenever you're tired. And especially even in competition too, you have to deal with the nerves of stepping on the mat, especially when you go to something like World Championships or even in Nationals competing against UFC champion. Like, you have to be able to deal with those nerves, and the rest of life going into work each day is a lot easier. So it builds up that character and strength to do like the everyday things in life. And good on Seth for sticking through it.
We start from standing with Sport Sambo. At this point, I started to get a bit of a second wind. My boat had no sails, though, so the wind didn't really matter. It was just kind of all hot air.
Nice little armbar right there. Sumigaishi? No, Yoko Otoshi. Nice. Straight into a Kimura. Beautiful. Nice job, man.
We are really good
at catching stuff in mid scramble. So like if I know that I messed something up, I'm already transitioning to the next thing.
Actually, that is very accurate of Sambo. If you fail a throw, you should be attempting to go for a submission, or if you go for a throw, you should be going for a submission as quick as possible or into a pin.
Takeaways. Holy crap, this man is strong. I have never been tapped out so many times to pure uncomfortableness. Like, he wasn't hurting me.
Let's get into the combat portion. Good little knees in the clinch.
If there was going to be a time for me to do something cool, it would be now. This is like, I've been striking since I was 3.
Nice kick catch.
What was so hard is that he was just constantly attached to me. No matter what I did, no matter how I tried to scramble, or whatever strikes I tried to throw, he was just always there.
So that's something you're going to see a lot in combat Sambo, is you're not going to see super prolonged exchanges on the outside. It's basically going to be 2 to 4 punch/strike combos into grappling. You don't see a lot of playing around on the outside. All right, someone gets hit and they're going to get grab up, or you're going to use your strikes to get a grip. If you're losing the striking battle, grip up. All right, but if you're winning the striking battle, use those strikes to get points by taking them down. If that's how the scoring system works. It doesn't reward long, prolonged striking exchanges, because you only get points for striking if you like knock somebody down or knock someone out. So it's going to reward you using your strikes to getting into grips. So that's why you're going to see that. And I really like Ben using those like kick catches, because those are really good for Sambo, because you catch someone's kicks and throw them flat on their back, total victory, it's over. So this is a really good representation of what combat Sambo looks like.
And this right here is pretty much the best Sambo moment I had. A headbutt, bang, but it didn't matter.
Very nice throw from Ben as well.
The striking didn't matter. His pressure was insane. It was just like, it was ridiculous. Even like knowing that I could strike after I felt how powerful he was the first second.
Overall, Sambo is kind of what I expected it to be, with how difficult and how demanding it is. It was also kind of not what I expected it to be. It was even more difficult to work with than I thought it was going to be. I'm impressed. I'll say it. Nobody asked, but I'll say it. I'm impressed.
I agree with Seth. Love to hear that he was impressed by Sambo, and hopefully we can get him out to try it again someday whenever he's feeling a little bit better, not as winded from the flu, and maybe we can get him in a Sambo competition. So if you ever want to come out here to Sambo Nation Fort Worth, shoot me a DM, Seth, and we'll get you out here. All right, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and have a good day. Ready? 1, 2.